so much to talk about today. So shall we crack on? And as you know, the only story in town, of course, is the American election results. So let's speak to Tom Del Beccaro, who's a former chair of the Californian Republican Party. Tom, great to have you on the programme. Now, let's
Great
start.
to see you, thanks.
Oh, lovely to see you. Now, let's talk about this result. Were you on tenterhooks? Were you sitting there thinking, gosh, this is going to be close? Or did you think, do you know what, the mood music is such that my gut is telling me that this is going to go Trump's way?
Well, there were some anxious moments. It seemed to take longer than we thought. As an ex-party chairman, I was paying very close attention to the final registration numbers between the parties in our particular states. And the Republicans in the last year picked up an enormous amount. So in Pennsylvania, they picked up in voter registration well over 200,000. In Nevada, they picked up double what they lost by the last time, more than double. So I was convinced Trump was going to win. I didn't expect him to win to this degree, but look, it's never over till it's over, as we say.
Indeed it is. Now, talking about over till it's over, he is, of course, a president-elect. There is still a president of the United States of America in the form of one Joe Biden. We are expecting him to speak at some point, 4 o'clock, but, you know, they're not usually on time that side of the pond, are they? I waited for blimmin' ages to hear Kamala Harris scrape last night. So we are waiting to hear what Joe Biden has to say. When that happens, we will cross over live and take some of that. Now, interesting, talking about relics and fossils like Joe Biden, you say 200,000 people extra registering to vote in Pennsylvania. Quite astonishing, actually, that I believe, if the things I've read are correct, that 185,000 of those could well have been people from the Amish community who aren't necessarily always minded to go out and vote, but had sort of, you know, had a few, states visits due to the way they make their dairy and decided that, no, we want to live in a free world.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is the sort of the hard work that's below the headline that needs to be done to win an election. You're right. They don't register to vote normally. They don't want the attention. They have a good life. They don't need to be told by Michelle Obama how they should be living their life. But as you mentioned, the state encroaches on them and they're fed up, just as a majority of Latino men are fed up with the fact of illegal immigration or the government undermining their ability to get jobs. And at the end of the day, that frustration, which the Democrats weren't addressing and which President Trump was addressing, was the difference in the election.
Yeah, I think as well, all of the negativity, all of the scare stories about, wow, if we allow him to come back, this time round he's really going to be a fascist. Oh, this time round he's definitely going to be a dictator. I just don't think it cut through, because I was told the other day that the average American mortgage has gone up from $800 a month to $1,700 a month. And in that sort of cost of living crisis, when you look back on what had gone before and what life was like under Trump, it's very hard to believe that it's going to be the doom and gloom that they were all portraying.
Well, that's because they had nothing else to sell, and socialists say, if you don't elect us, you're going to get chaos and pain, so therefore you have to vote for us. They can't sell their programs because they don't work, as you just mentioned. You got to understand, by the time the inflation and mortgage that you mentioned was done, astonishing over 50% of Americans had less than $5,000 in savings. So after Joe Biden and Harris eroded their economic condition, they were fed up and weren't going to be told how to live their lives after government ruined them over the last 4 years.
Now, something I find fascinating as a Brit is we're as keen to know what a Trump America might look like, as much as I'm sure you guys are. And the only thing that's sort of been bandied about is this Project 2025, which is apparently a 900-page policy wish list, a set of proposals that would expand presidential power and, in the words of the BBC, let's just say, would impose an ultra-conservative social vision. But apparently Trump has sort of repeatedly disavowed this Project 2025, which I understand was drawn up by the Heritage Foundation over in America, right-wing think tank, and does actually have some connections with the authors to people like J.D. Vance. First of all, before we sort of potentially delve into this, do you think there's any credence in looking at what it has to say, or is this just something that's been sort of done on the periphery that isn't going to shape the Trumpian presidency at all?
Well, I know people at the Heritage Foundation very well. Every year they put out policy proposals. Every year. Every election cycle, they put out policy proposals. So this is nothing particularly new. But again, the Democrats this time had nothing to sell. So what did they do? What you described earlier. They started telling us how Trump was going to turn into Hitler, and suddenly that Project 2025 was going to be his game plan. So they just ran on fear, and fear doesn't pay the bills for people, so they rejected that. And no, I don't expect much to come out of it. There may be something in there that will, but that's because Trump has his own ideas, to be sure. You can't accuse Trump of having his own ideas, which the left did constantly, and then say, oh no, he's just going to pick up some booklet and that's what he's going to do.
Let's talk about some of his own ideas. Now, we know that he's going to give Elon Musk a pretty big appointment. My understanding is it will be sort of in the forms of business of government, maybe, you know, cutting down your civil service, as it may be called, the swamp, and looking at ways of making efficiency savings. My understanding is Elon Musk has sort of said, well, in the short term, this might create a few ripples of discomfort, but it'll be good for America's long-term productivity. And also, we know that he wants to really take control of borders. He wants to do something about the huge swathes of illegal migration you've had coming into the country, potentially with deporting a heck of a lot of people. I mean, it's around 15 million who have come in illegally in the first sort of few days and weeks of office. Do you think that's achievable?
Well, I think what will happen in the first day is you will have the 94 executive orders that Biden undid related to the border. Trump will reimpose, and that will make a big difference. Now, how they go about deportation, they will start with, they think that there's over 13,000 murderers that were let loose in the country, came from Venezuela and other dark, bad places, meaning the prisons within there. And they're going to focus on something like that first. Just to give you an idea how many 13,000 is, that was 4 murders for every county in America. So I think they will start in that direction, and where they go from there, we'll have to see. You got to keep in mind that almost half of those here illegally have overstayed their visas. And there's no rationale. I mean, you don't get to go to England and just stay forever if you want. You don't get to go to Italy and stay forever if you want.
You say that, but I think you'll find you do in England, unfortunately. We're not very good at deporting people. We seem to be bound up with all of these sort of commitments to foreign treaties and supranational organisations who say, well, you better not put that person on a plane. That will be an abuse of their human rights. Do you have the same problem in America? Or if you suddenly decide, right, you're here illegally and you're going back from whence you came, even if they don't necessarily have a passport, that you're able to do that? I'm fascinated because we could learn a lesson or two.
Yeah, I mean, half the people here, it isn't just that they come over the border. Right? Keep in mind the 19 perpetrators of 9/11 were on expired visas. So we shouldn't send a message to the world, you can come no matter what. And we can't send a message to the world that says that even if you're a murderer, you can stay and walk about the United States. That's just ridiculous. So I think in that particular area, he's going to first shut down the border, and then they're going to go about determining a policy on how to get those murderers first, or drug dealers. We have a huge fentanyl problem in this country, kills 80,000 people a year. Just to give you a sense of how big that is, that's more people per year than died in the entire Vietnam War, all 8 or 9 years of it. So I think it'll be more targeted. What's very important early on also is he's going to allow the sale of liquid natural gas to Europe so you don't have to buy it from Russia. He's going to reimpose sanctions on Iran so they stop funding the wars in the Middle East, and the world will begin to calm down.
Do you know, I'm glad you said that. I did my sort of top 10 reasons why we should all welcome a Trump presidency in Britain, and actually buying your LNG and sorting out the Middle East were on my list. Tom Del Beccaro, thank you ever so much, former chair of the California Republican Party.